And we're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is very good to see you. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and Chthonian berserks to that 6+++ show. I am still very much your host, Tom, and I'm here to natter all things 40k. We are, of course, the podcasting team of 6++, a UKTC gaming team, and we're here to talk all things Warhammer. We've got a little bit of a sort of Saffron Slam giggle to have at the start as we recount sort of the basics of our adventure there. But we're also going to be talking about goal setting today because it's a new season. There's a new UKTC season. There is obviously a new edition that we're only a few months into. So it's a time when I think a lot of us think about what we'd like to achieve. And we're obviously a little way into doing this now. We've been doing the setting goals and trying to reach things for a while. So it's a nice time for us to look back on how far we've come, think about where we want to go, and maybe give you some ways that you can kind of visualize and think about your own goals going forwards as well. But before we dive into any of that, we have to meet the cast of players, starting, of course, with my dear leader, Chris. Chris, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. How are you, good sir?
I am well. Yeah, I'm well. My voice is a little bit husky from the weekend, too much shouting and talking, but otherwise I'm all right.
Yeah, my voice was gone on Monday, and my mum's like, "Do you talk to your opponent when you're playing the game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's kind of a social interaction
For 3
It's not-
solid hours.
Yeah, it's
And
quite a lot of talking going on."
You got to talk over everyone else is the thing that
Yeah,
people don't realise.
when you get good reverb in the hall.
My final game was, I was chatting to Jack, and he's like, "I cannot hear a thing you're saying," because there was 5 people stood just behind him, like brah, 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 brah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a chatty thing.
It is. It absolutely is. And dare I ask, have you done any hobby this week?
I actually have.
Oh, what have you done?
So I'm on my half term, and
Yeah.
I set myself the goal of painting or finishing off my Drago and painting 10 Strike Marines
Hey,
for
look
my
at that.
Grey Knight expansion. We've got I've got Coventry coming up. I might do Leicester, but I won't have it painted by then. So I'm going to do Elder for then. Just play my Elder list, and then in December we've got a 6++ fun time party RTT kind of thing we're doing, and I'm hoping to get it done for then.
Perfect.
So that's kind of it's a bit over a month. After I've done these 10 strikes, which I'm about halfway through, I'll just have another 25 Terminators to do, and then we'll be fine.
Yeah, wonderful. No, I'm really excited to see them on the table because I say it's an army that you've been having fun with in the little bits that I've seen it being used. So I think that's really cool. I'm also joined tonight by the wonderful Ed. Ed, how are you doing, my man?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. I already chat's needling at me. I think we just need a section which is just Ed argues with the stupid things he's read from chat. Not that existence comment is stupid. That one's
It's actually quite funny. Made me laugh.
yeah, I liked that. I'd
Well played, sir.
little grin to that. But yeah, no, we have had a couple of YouTube comments that maybe we just need to make that a weekly thing where I just say, look, you who commented,
Yeah, we should actually.
wrong.
Yeah, we should have a section.
The rebuffs.
Yeah, absolutely. You've commented on my video. Fuck off. So you know what? I'm going to do it
in the eyes personally and say
in the recent video that I did with Jack and Tom where we talk about various it was what Custodes
Chaos Knights and Tau.
Yeah. Someone said, "Oh, you can only actually have Custodian Guard in Squad of 4 instead of 3," which is that's true. And I said 3 instead of 4.
You pay for
the forest for the trees there, mate. What I'm saying is MSU. Just take squads of 4. You can take Terminators in squads of 3. So the point was completely lost on you. Don't bother watching it again. You
Oh gosh.
don't want you.
Oh, excellent.
No, you know what? That's unfair. I'm totally open to reformed viewers. We'll give you another chance.
Yeah, their continued involvement is welcome as long as they fundamentally change in line with what we want. I think that's always a really important thing to ask of the internet.
Our subscribers have just dropped down by 10 though. So not sure what the correlation
But they were the shit ones. So.
Yeah.
Ed.
No, it's great. Everyone who's still here is the good ones.
Yeah. It's a combative way of doing it, but I respect it.
Someone's got to, and by that I mean nobody has to, but I'm going to.
You want to, yeah.
Over in the traditionally slightly less combative corner, we've also got Scrivo. Scrivo, how are you?
I have been putting salve on my wounds from the weekend, especially from round 2, where I had a lot of Melter and Havoc Launcher burns.
Pew pew.
And a lot of terrain falling on me because obviously that's what rocks do. But yeah, otherwise I'm all right. I've been painting a jump pack captain for the Battle of Britain that's on this weekend. I don't know if he's going to do much good, but he's a lone operative this weekend, so it should be quite fun.
You're running the Vanguard detachment, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've got a
That's
captain in there. He can then spend a CP to lift him and his unit, which will be just him, and put him in reserves, which is just a gimmick I wanted to do. Apparently, that's what Eldar players do.
Lone up score piece, right?
That's how they win, right? Just that one thing is what makes them win. Not that the rest of the army's great.
No.
So he
should be
gives you a
fine.
CP, and he lets you do actions after you advance as well, I'm assuming. Oh, is that just Eldar?
Sure. Yeah, I don't need those things. It's fine.
And he doesn't get back up when he dies either. It's not all those things in one, but he does cost the same, pretty much. So
100 points.
At least there's
perfect.
God, the Wayleaf is so good, but we'll talk about him later. The Wayleaf, once again, was the bane of my life this weekend, but that's absolutely fine.
I'm not jealous. It's fine.
It's his job. I'm just going to shout out people in the chat because the chat is kicking off. Hello, everybody. Very nice to see everyone. Obviously, Elmo Miniatures is promoting Saffron Slam's team tournament, as you'd expect. It was an amazing event. Really, really fun. We're going to the singles in February. Cannot wait to get back out there, and hopefully I'll play on the Ravine board because it still hasn't happened for me. So I'm really excited to go back.
Don't make me think about
Thanks for hosting us, Lewis. It was an amazing time. Obviously, we'll talk about it in a minute before we get into the goal setting and stuff. But hello, Pickalax. Hello, Sindri. Yes, call your lunchtime plus. I love that idea. I think that's very, very good. And Existence UK throwing some shade. That's good. That's what we like. Gene Steeler says half term is always hobby term. Damn right. This is when Chris gets everything done.
Yeah.
This is his productivity week. Well, productivity might not be the right way of putting it, but this is when he really gets stuck into the hobby after a busy time. Scrivo's then slagging Ed off because never just in one place, are you? You're always every time I read out your comments whilst you're on the show.
Get you every time. It's brilliant.
And hello to Hick Dead as well. Very good to have you all here.
Ducky. Hi, Ducky.
We'll be doing questions later on. So if you do have further questions, do chuck them in the chat, and we'll try and address them later on.
If you want me to argue with you, say something stupid, like at me as well, so I know that it's not just you being daft.
Designed to provoke.
Yeah. Make sure that I take notice.
Excellent. Okay, so we are very good at self-promotion, possibly the best. And it falls to Chris to demonstrate why with a bit of a Palouse roundup. What's coming? What's been? What are we up to, Chris?
Oh, all of the videos. So, in the last, as we all know, Tom, you did a video called Play Your Cards Right.
I sure did.
And what do you want to tell us about it?
It is about tactical secondaries and scoring them in 10th. And what I'm doing is I'm drawing 4 random ones out the deck and talking through how you can approach sort of getting the most out of them in game. And I've got a bunch of... I had the 4 Ts. I've forgotten off the top of my head exactly what those were, but I think it was trade-offs, thinking about what the risks are, the issues, twist, thinking about whether you need to get rid of the card, when in a game you might want to chuck it, what the sort of the thinking and factors might be there, whether you should take as fixed, and then there was another one. Oh, tools, what units you might want for doing it.
I was going to say, if you want the 4th one, watch the video.
That would be very good. And in part 2, I'll tell you what the 4th T is over on our Patreon. No, exactly. So that's very fun to do. I think I'm definitely a big fan of tactical. I know there was a sort of everyone take fixed moment a little while back, especially around LGT, but actually I'm a massive fan of tactical. That might be because I'm playing an army with 10 million units that can go and score all the cards whenever it wants. But I think one thing I'm starting to get my head around is that pacing of the fact that you've got 5 turns to score 40 points, and the fact that actually there's a bit of knowing when to pick your moment, working out when do I need to go big in a turn, what kinds of cards might have more risk than I want at this moment in a game, when's a good time to push for 10 points on cards, when is an 8 kind of appropriate, these kinds of things. So trying to sort of bring that over, I think, in the series, and I'll keep adding to it and drawing the rest of the cards as we go. So yeah, a lot of fun to make. Go check it out on YouTube if you haven't already.
Definitely. So then we also had Davey do Bugwatch, all about Crusher Stampede. Ed and Scrivo did their Cracking the Codex, all about the Ironstorm Spearhead. Now there has been a vote for the next one, and it's going to be what, Scrivo?
The Stormlance Strike Force.
Yeah, baby.
Which is apparently White Scars. I'm looking for all those mounted White Scars units. Not found them yet, but when I do, I'll make a list. I'm there.
Excellent. That's fun. That'll be coming out some point soon. And Scrivo also had his second episode of Scrivo versus the Bard, where he talks about the WTC, and this time he talks about the Matrix and pairings and that sort of thing, which he filmed on the Monday, I think, which is very apt because we've just done our teams.
Yeah, that was a challenge because I was full of matrices. I had to even check that to make sure I wasn't saying matrices, but I still said it. But yeah, I'm still confused by them.
They are a tricky beast. And then we, of course, had our matchup plus, which you've had a sneak preview of from Ed there as he attacked one of the commenters. So the guys spoke about Tau, Custodians, and Chaos Knights, kind of what units you need to look out for, what sort of lists are out there at the moment doing well, and kind of how to counter them and what things to consider when to play them. It's a really, really good series. We've done 2 episodes now covering 6 different factions, so definitely check those out. In terms of content coming up, on Friday, some of us are getting together to film some battle report.
Can't wait.
So we've got Davey with his Nids, myself with my Eldar, Tom with his I guess Votan, and then we've got Scrivo with his probably some form of Marines.
I'm going to bring this Votan. Look, I'll bring this Votan.
Is that one of yours, John?
Yeah, it's my Lego space person, Ice Planet.
Oh,
Votan.
Yeah, I forgot you had some Votan. Do you want to come be a Votan main with me?
No.
So we're going to film some battle reports then, 1 or 2, and then that'll be all the content that you could desire. In terms of supporting us, we have an affiliate page which you can find in the description. If you head over to Composite Games and buy some Warhammer, which is already 20% off. If you use the code PLUS, you get an extra 5% off. And today someone did that, and yesterday.
Nice.
People are firing out the monies to Composite Games. We get a little smidgen of that. And of course, if you would like to help us even more, we do have a Patreon, which we are trying to build up at the moment with a kind of early access to content and stuff. And as more of you guys sign up, the more content we'll be able to produce and put exclusively on there. We also have aspects of kind of like coaching, mentoring, however you wish to view it. We're getting good feedback from that as well at the moment. So
we are.
check it out. Again, link is in the description.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again to everyone who has signed up, everyone who's liking and subscribing, and everyone who's commenting. There's a bunch of you doing that at the moment, and it means the world to us. It's really cool. We're very energized. We're 10th in a good place and with lots of people engaging. So thanks very much for that. And please keep it up. Okay, wonderful. So obviously our main topic today will be goal setting. But goal setting doesn't take that long, does it? So I think we should talk a little bit, but not a little bit, about the Saffron Slams Teams tournament. Because one thing we are going to make is some in-depth interviews with Alfarius and also with hopefully Legion as well. For a series I'm going to make. I basically wanted somewhere to chuck all our team's content and interviews, and I'm going to have a running series called No I in Team. If all goes well, it won't just be interviewing our teams about what they've done. Down the line, hopefully I'll speak to other teams out in the world, your War Masters, your Ignites, etc.
The lesser teams.
The lesser teams, yeah, exactly. The small
lift them
fish,
up somehow.
The small fish. I'll invite them over to our big pond. So that's where that'll be. So yeah, if you want really, really in-depth look at how we approach pairings and matrices and all these different things this time, because I think, spoilers, I think we all did it pretty well, then you'll be able to find all of that juicy stuff when we get No I in Team recorded. But in a more general sense, let's talk about Saffron Slam teams. Do you want to take us off, Chris?
It was wonderful. Lewis put on a hell of a show down in good old Saffron Walden. We took 3 teams out of the 10 representing.
Yeah, we did.
There was lots of friendly faces there. We know quite a lot of the other players. There was 40k Gaming and 40k Under 21. There was War Masters there. Sons of War, or Cambridge War Games Club, as Tom likes to call them.
Yes.
And it was, I think, massive shout out to Lewis, who ran, like, once again, an incredible event. There's just a really positive, happy vibe going around the place. The actual venue's really good. It's right in the centre of town. And it's an interesting one for, like, someone for me who realistically only plays the UKTC events. So I'm just very much in this space of, like, this is a set terrain layout, set ruins, and that sort of thing. To come across to this style of to this kind of map pack where you're like, I can't walk through these ruins all of a sudden, or these hills, and I don't know where to deploy, and where am I going? It's like very much like on your feet, putting you kind of in that situation. And with the team's environment added in, like, board picks were really interesting.
Really interesting.
Because we certainly were able to make the most of certain board picks. / Scrivo got bummed because of a particular board pick as well. I think it added a really interesting dynamic that we haven't really experienced in other team events. We had the original team event UKTC, which is where just pick up 2 ruins from one table and put them on another, which just led to a barren wasteland.
Just absolutely awful.
And the other table not giving a shit about it because it wasn't really any way you could place it. We've obviously done the WTC ones, but we don't know them well enough to have invested enough time to understand those. So this was actually a really cool kind of like dynamic that Lewis offered there. So I think
I completely agree. I actually think those boards were really fun for teams. And as you say, it just meant I like it when a bit of reactive thinking is involved in general. I just think that's nice about thinking on your feet. And I think, as you say, with the pairings, that really added something. You guys were very good at exploiting that, as Paul Lee Churchwood can attest after his Ravine 100-all draw with Lee.
What a game!
Yeah, I was looking over and he was just so frustrated for the entirety of that.
Let us
game.
know in the chat if you've ever had 100-all draw, because
100-all draws.
We managed it in a Plusov this week.
Thanks to an enormous chasm between the two armies. Fantastic. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit, like, sort of in outline, Chris and Scrivo, about the kind of team Legion experience?
Yeah. So we kind of went in knowing that we had a reasonable chance of doing well. Before the event, we made our matrices into the early opposition, and probably our worst matrices were for Alpharius and War Masters. So those are the two we kind of knew we were going to struggle a bit into potentially. The game, I always find I don't play well game one, and also I felt the pairings process was quite blurred in that one. We kind of got away with it. But we played some lovely chaps from, I think they're called ECL.
Yeah.
And we managed to grab the win there. I think we all pretty much kind of had like close games, apart from Johnny, the mind-boggling slut who decided to join us and represent us in like 20 some poor demon guy. But so yeah, got to a great start, and then boom, Alpharius. So we got to play Alpharius round 2, and it was quite funny because I'd spent like 2 days like panicking over this pairings process, and I'd come up with
You'd done your homework. You'd done a lot more homework than we have.
We had, and when we knew we had you outside, we kind of talked it through at lunchtime, and we were like, right, well, we're pretty sure they're going to start with Paul for XYZ reasons.
If in doubt, throw Paul James.
We'll put these 2 down, and they take this, and we basically came out there and we're like, well, we could do this, and then we could take this board and blah blah. And what happened was it literally went exactly as we genuinely every single thing that happened was as we had said. We got the exact boards we want. The issue was that didn't actually particularly help us because we still had it down as a loss on our matrix. And there were a few gambles there. The mission was one of those. So, for example, I got into Jack's Tau. And I wasn't able to, and it's a good matchup for the Elder. I wasn't able to generate a big gap. Jack played well.
It was the ritual, wasn't it?
It was also,
stodgy mission.
you've got like three. You've got three cards basically for your secondaries, and you were making lots of objectives for your primaries. So it's really hard to build up a differential. Meanwhile, we had kind of punted poor Alex into the Votan and be like, maybe it'll be okay, and it wasn't okay.
It's not okay.
And Alex was like, I went over the first time and he was like, well, we're about to find out how it goes, and then I came back shortly after. He was like, it's all dead.
He had me very worried. He played the first turn or two of that really well, and then just Thunderkin into Necrons is just the most horrific thing I've ever seen. Just kills entire bricks without even trying.
Yeah. So that didn't quite go according to plan. And so our plan to mitigate Lee's CSM was, well, what if we put Lee Chaos Knights on the Ravine board, and then Lee Churchwood can't go anywhere, and Lee can just walk through the walls. And I went over after like turn bottom of 1 or start of 2, and Lee was like, both Lees were like, wow, this might actually be 100 all draw. And
that's amazing.
It was 100 all draw.
Yeah, so remarkable.
Scrivo was playing against some arsehole. Can't remember who.
Yeah, unfortunately,
he's had to play him twice before this in round 2 at events.
Yeah, I was going to say this is becoming a bit of an occurrence.
And I've played the Ritual round 2 against Chaos Knights as well, and that one didn't go well previously. But the difference was I at least had somewhere to hide, I would say. On this board, there wasn't a place to hide. And I thought, I'll just hide behind these rocks that I can't go through. But guess what, guys? Chaos Knights can go through rocks. So you're like, oh, cool, I'm safe behind this wall.
No, they were pretty flexible actually on the Saffron Slam terrain because you could always run through something.
There were hills everywhere.
They kept asking
a good pick for that.
Do you want to be defended? Which board do you want? Stop asking me. I did say, stop asking me. I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that to me was one big learn for the Matrix that I would have liked to maybe put if we've got a fixed board or a non-fixed board for like the scoring. I think that would have been helpful to kind of flag up.
Yeah,
because in that sort of
very
matchup,
very tricky to model for. Maybe you could go like light versus heavy and hope.
Because that's normally what you do. You give a preference, but in this, it's kind of like, am I on a UKTC or Peterborough Slam board? I'd be kind of this sort of score. If not, this is where I'll be. And I think that's kind of would help maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard because also some of those boards were. Yeah, they weren't UKTC, but some were lighter than others. Some there was more than enough room or place to hide. So yes, it is a tricky one. But full credit to Alpharis, they grabbed the win there.
I think you outpaired us. I think you guys had a stronger plan for that than we did. But I think then we
losing plan.
Oh no, but it's in terms of mitigating. As I say, I think we would have agreed that the list advantage was probably ours. So the fact that you mitigated that massively in the pairings, I think, was really impressive.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was a very fun time.
And then round 3, we played 40k gaming under 21s.
Oh, nice.
They weren't under 21.
They weren't.
Yeah, I didn't see any under 21 looking teams in there.
I think at one point Lee Jones was like, "But they don't look under 21. It can't be them." I think it's a jokey name.
I think it's the younger half of the group, and they're not that much younger.
Yeah, but we grabbed the win there. Pairings went well. Kind of felt like we nailed it. We got our Chaos Knights into the Eldar for a 14-6 win. I think I beat Custodes. Scrivo, you played Death Guard.
I think I got a draw.
Yeah, he had Mike Cheng, who's a good player, so a hard.
Death Guard are obviously really strong. So
seven Deathwing Knights.
Apologies to Mike Cheng because I told him in chat last week to come and say hi to me, and he caught me at the end of the event and he was like, "Oh, I didn't get a chance to say hi to you," and I kind of just looked at him like he was an alien. At this point, I played 5 round Warhammer and my brain was gone. So Mike, if you see this, apologies if you thought, why is he looking at me like that? I did know who you were and my brain just didn't catch up, so thanks for saying hi. Your army's still shit, but good job on I think winning three of your games. If you play a proper faction, you could probably win mid-sized GTs.
Stop
Pick it up.
Stop it.
Stop ruining it. It's not fucking Naruto.
For
mate.
anyone who
There's
doesn't
no
know,
weighted
Lewis-
fucking leg weights you can take off and then kick everyone's ass. Play a good
Lewis
army and win events.
has renamed the Saffron Slam Best
Oh
Sport
yeah,
Prize
oh,
as the
you
Ed
were saying
Fawcett
loads of
Loves Death
fucking
Guard Prize.
positive things. Let's talk about the hate crime committed on me. And it was a hate crime because I hated it. The Sportsmanship Award. He came up to me, smug as you like, sort of lunchtime on Sunday, goes, I've renamed the Sportsmanship Award. Prior to this, he'd bought a box of Death Guard, like a start collecting Death Guard, because that's a reasonable thing to give to someone that you
People
like.
leave those on
if
people's
that's
doorsteps. Yeah.
Why would you do that to anyone? Like, we want to encourage good behaviour. Have something that's a punishment.
And then I then gifted the data cards to go with it.
Yeah, that is true. And anyway, the award ceremony is like, and we've renamed it in perpetuity. Ed Fawcett Loves Death Guard. That's my Lewis, in case you couldn't tell. I'm not quite getting as annoying as I should have done. But yeah, that was that. I let him have his moment.
I really enjoy it. I hope that lives on forever. Anyway, so where were you, Chris? I think that's three games played now.
2-1 in the
2-1. Yep.
We went for a lovely pizza.
Oh, it was so good.
At Dough and Co. or something like that.
Yeah,
I can't remember. And then on Sunday morning we played. We're at this interesting stage where kind of like we're all just going to start playing. Like everyone's kind of playing each other. Right? They haven't played. You're going to be playing down or up depending on your win bracket. Like there's not going to be a same amount of people with you who have kind of got the same result as you. So we played into Sons of War, Cambridge Wargaming Club, which was a really interesting game. Pairings went all right in this. Kind of we got to the plan, and I think this was the game where Lee lost 14-6 into the Eldar. It was
Yes.
slightly different Eldar list.
Yeah, I liked this Eldar list. It was double Avatar, 10 Wraithguard.
Yeah, it was just a bit more bullish. And because of the map they were on, he was able to kind of play around it. The Eldar guy was able to played it really well, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was a good play.
The Alex played like his 17th Necron mirror in 10 games or something. I don't know. It's just, poor guy. Just like, well, you look down the matrix and you're like, one. There's the mirror. What do you think, Alex? Go on.
First time I met him at the Invitational, Davies Invitational at the start of 10th, he was really energetic and he had loads of life in him. And he just doesn't anymore.
No, it's gone.
He's a shallow husk of a man.
With a little goatee that's basically the only proof that he's still alive is that this hair's grown.
Yeah, it is certainly an interesting facial hair look. I'm loving it. But no, that was a really interesting pairing. I played into Paul Bridges' Thousand Suns, which I played into Jamie Clifford's on the Wednesday, so I had some idea how it was. I'd scraped to win there, but I could see that potentially it could be quite a hard matchup, but none of us really knew how to play or were that confident into Thousand Suns. We hadn't really experienced it, so I kind of took it on, which resulted in a loss for me. Then we had this interesting moment where, so we kind of got timed out. Lewis came over and said, right, what's the score at the end of turn 4? So we told him, which gave us the narrow win, gave us like a 2-point win or something. But then Paul suddenly realised he'd actually allocated my primary for turn 5 already, so it should have been a bit more of a deficit and a win for him, which made it a draw. So we drew our Sunday morning game 51-49. And it actually was completely irrelevant what happened in that game because we all knew who we were playing next, which was, of course, War Masters.
Boom.
So we were a bit like, because if there was one team we had an even worse matrix into than Alphiris, it was War Masters. I think there was like 2 4s in the entirety of it, and it was 3s and 2s and Alex 1s everywhere else. But hey, we always got to have a plan, right? And we sorted out quite a tasty plan, and they took some bait. So we put down. We kind of worked out what they were going to put down, and they put down CK first, Chaos Knights, and we're like, well, we'll give them Admech, and I can't remember who else. They took the Admech.
Mental.
Now, that, for those of you who don't know, is an absolutely shocking choice in general, because Admech, if you go on stat check and look at the win percentage of Admech into Chaos Knights, it's like they just dominate them. But they then picked the Ravine board, and they were trying to mitigate Admech. I'm like, why are you trying to mitigate Admech? Just play fair Admech. Like, just it will be an interesting game. And
you literally just do this to us in the 2 or 3 rounds before.
So they took this game, and they chose a Ravine board, and well, funny enough, it backfired. Who knew?
It hurt.
Meanwhile, we managed to get our Necrons into the 1-3 on our mate or 2 on the matrix, which was Orcs, and we got to choose this board, which is basically hills everywhere apart from the middle, and it was like so cinematic. Alex just whacks.
It was like 300, right?
So he put flayed ones in the middle, forward deployed, so that even if he went for a second, the Orcs couldn't get fully onto the objective.
Yeah.
And then just held it.
See of it.
So good.
Just
amazing.
Crashed into these Necrons. He went, "You shall not pass."
It's brilliant.
And he grabbed the win there. Meanwhile, Johnny's like, so Johnny's dismantling his foe. I've gone to Lee, right, you've got the guard. Okay, we don't know how this goes, but, we think we've got a good chance there. I've got paired into Jack Tight, friend of the channel, obviously a very, very strong player.
Shout out
CSM. But I've never played the matchup before, but I have watched it lots on YouTube, so I might have some idea what I'm doing here. Obviously, we're all a bit concerned about Jack with CSM because he could blow someone out. And Scrivo has got Tau.
Yes, he does.
I'm like, Scrivo, mate, all I need from you is like anything close to a 10-10. Just play super defensive. Just don't give anything away. And I think after about 15 minutes, Chris, I've lost my Land Raider already.
No, that was 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
That was the first thing he shot because it was in the only place it could fit.
Essentially, Andy just turned around and went, "It's a 20-0."
Yeah, he was on the same board that I played Alex on, where it's just like there's just nowhere to hide.
Yeah, he chose that board, and he was like, "Yeah, I've got a 20-0. Everyone else, off you go." So we were like all a bit like, "Oh shit."
Sorry.
So, and then it's quite interesting because next to me is Lee versus Jamie, and after about turn 2, Jamie leans into Jack and goes, "I'm seriously fucked," and I'm like, "Oh." Interesting. Okay, this is positive. My game was going quite well into Jack, and everything else seems to be panning out all right. Anyway, after it's all said and done, we ended on a 50-all draw.
Oh,
beautiful, poetic. However, Lee Jones, right? Lee Jones comes and goes, well, the thing was, I failed 2 5-inch rerollable charges, and if I'd done that, it would have been like a 15-5 win for me rather than an 11-9 loss. And it's like, man. So, dice be dice, right? But, they were a really good team. We had a shit matrix into them, so we were really happy with kind of that showing. Like, from a personal perspective, I don't think I played particularly well on the Saturday, but my game into Jack was definitely one of the best games I've personally played in a very long time because I managed to beat him, and he's obviously a very strong player.
Absolutely.
And from a captaining point of view, like, we felt like we nailed the pairings. The 4 other guys were super supportive and kind of just played for the team exceptionally well, and it really enforced my my love of teams, really, because it's just such a great time.
Totally agree. In fact, I had a conversation with Johnny just before our final round. He was talking about the War Masters draw, and he was like, "Well, basically, if we can draw with War Masters, that guarantees that you guys finish first." And I was like, "That's an extremely cute way of looking at it. That's like so selfless and like wider teams." And he's not even like of our team. It was just, I think that's the thing teams brings out there, right? That really kind of collaborative spirit. And I mean, you captained it super well, and I think it was. And Johnny also was a real asset, and everyone played out their skins. So I was super impressed with Legion. I thought it was really, really, really cool to see them smashing it, taking names.
And came 3rd, by the way. So
third
place. We got our
podium
bronze medal.
Podium, yeah.
Podium, baby. And was there another podium for the police?
There was actually, yes. Ed, what happened to Alfarius? How did we get on? What was our adventure through this?
Fucking smashed it, mate.
Fucking smashed it.
All right, Ed.
Just smashed everybody. Just won a bunch of games. It was good.
I guess we could talk a little bit about it. I guess we've got time.
Yeah, don't go into too much because obviously we are going to talk about this for another thing. But
absolutely,
let's just get the contours of it.
So I'm probably the worst person to talk about this because I am not involved in the pairings decisions.
No.
I just sit there or stand there on probably the other side of the table. And when Jack asks me questions, I kind of just go, "Do you want, mate? Like, you could put me wherever." We had a bit of a team meeting on the Saturday night after pizza as well, and it was Tom and Jack and Lee sort of chipping in occasionally. I was kind of just sat
Lee
there,
was falling asleep on a chair. Was what Lee was doing.
He was trying.
Lee was too old to be up after half 11.
I was just kind of there, like, yeah, like most of my matrix were threes, just like across the board. Turns out that was incredibly wrong, and I apologized to Jack in the car. I was like, "I'm really sorry for causing you more stress." He was like, "Oh, it's fine because you overperformed." Like, yeah, but it's the bits you don't see, like pairing me into maybe an easier matchup. So it could have gone better elsewhere. But yeah, so round one we had the Grimdark Garage. I played against Christina.
We had 4TK, not Grimdark.
I can't remember names.
Yeah, we never played Grimdark Garage, which was a shame because they're a strong team. But no, we played 4TK.
That's the one. Yes, we played 40k, as I was saying.
In the comments that he got it wrong.
Yeah, well, that's fun. And that was, I ended up into Tau, which was like the worst matchup on that matrix. I didn't want Tau at all, but it was like, it's fine, whatever. It was quite a dense board, and I managed to deploy everything behind walls. She went first, kind of just chilled where she was. I was like, okay, that makes sense. You don't want to get too aggressive and me come, and because I'd let her know, the carnivores can move 14 inches through walls. They can charge through walls again. So she was very cautious about coming forwards. So I moved up and I staged on this really dense bit of terrain. I gave her one angle she could shoot down. Then turn two, she did the same. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I've won the game. Now I just have to get as many points as possible. And that was a 17-3. Like the Crisis Brick didn't come out till turn 3. And she was saying she was a newer Tau player.
Okay, so it was just sort of being cautious and
knew all the rules, like was on the ball with it, didn't make any mistakes, but just sort of like getting that familiarity in with a less common matchup. But she also didn't have any of the like heavy rail weaponry, which is what really scares me as a Chaos Knights player.
Yes,
so
the broadsides, things like that, right?
When I came out in turn 3 and just sort of bum rushed the middle, and she rolled loads of shots and then things didn't die, I was like, oh, maybe this is why the Tau matchup seems better on the because people are taking the wrong guns. For me personally,
yeah,
so that was
absolutely
good. We had a really nice solid start to the Saturday there. I think it was like 82-18, something along those lines.
I think essentially I just drew with Harley was playing for that team. Obviously Harley I've played before, so shout out to him. I think he's in the chat somewhere. Really, really decent Eldar player. Had a really good run at LGT. I had played him back when Votan were garbage, so I was keen to have another go. And every time I played Votan Eldar, it's been 5-10 points in it tops either direction, so I was pretty happy that if we could just neutralize that, then we'd be fine. And that was exactly how the round went. We drew that one and smashed all the other ones. And Harley played it really, really well, and I think in singles terms beat me by like a couple of points. It was a very, very good game on supply drop, but obviously got the 10-10, and that was very, very funny. Good use of the Incarn. Solitaire died to Overwatch, which is my favourite thing. Love that. Get in the bin, Solitaire. And the way Leaper killed about 3 Sagittara on his own because he is fair and balanced and very.
Mine does nothing. Mine never even wounds.
So Harley was using the Fate dice for the wound,
and
Grenade Strap, and then you've got enough
Grenade Strap
to get all of the because his gun can then just natural roll. With a few mortals on top, and that does it.
Too busy using Fugen, mate.
Well, I think you take them both because they're both it's ridiculous, but you've just got these characters who just are your anti-tank, just running around, just going. So yeah, I mean that was the round really. I think all the other games were fairly straightforward for everybody. So this was probably our kindest round in terms of it didn't get easier after that because obviously we drew Legion straight after. Chris has already talked about it. I think we're pretty agreed on that. I had a great time. Very well. paired it very well, and then we just outmuscled them anyway, just about. But it was a very good round.
Absolutely.
Alex, the game with Alex was really fun. Just really silly. Just Necrons just trying to hold on in the face of a frankly unreasonable amount of shooting once Blast gets involved. Round
three. We had another pairing. We had 6++ a Megan, the third team.
Yeah, we got paired down into our other team.
So yeah, and this was sort of like the nice matchup that we got in the middle of the very difficult run. Like out of all the teams there, if you looked at like sort of the top 4, I think we had to play the other 3 top teams to get to where we did, which was nice. It's how you want an event to go.
Yes.
But yeah, so round 3 was I feel comfortable saying a little easier, and the reason for that is there was some giggling going before we actually got to the matchup, and they were like, "Yeah, we're just going to shuffle the pairing cards. Jack's going to be so mad." So that was kind of how that was going. There was a not defeatism beforehand, but it was very much just sort of like we're going to have.
I'd say an acceptance. An acceptance. Yeah, there was. I think they were there to have a very fun time. They brought much more fun spreader lists, and we take it far more seriously. So I think they were happy enough with that was the likely outcome. There was a very funny moment. Obviously, Jamie was the one who decided to shuffle the cards. Jamie Clifford, shout out to him. He was their captain for the weekend, did a great job. Omegon are so much fun, and you would be lucky to pair into them at an event because they had a great time. He shuffled all the cards, put down first defender, turned it over. It was Thousand Suns, which is what his army was. He's like, "No, take it back. I changed mine. I don't want to shuffle it. I've changed mine."
Bless him.
I got to play against David.
You got Dave, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a good time, despite it being a horrendous matchup for him. So this was Scrambler Fields, so you can't teleport onto objectives. Dave's playing Grey Knights. It was also what's the one where you burn the objectives? What's that one called?
Scorched Earth.
So I play primary and I try and pick up some secondaries where I can. He plays secondaries and he tries to pick up some primary where he can. So it's an interesting one. So that match was me going, I'm going to stand on every objective and you're not going to do anything about it. And then turn 2, I'm going to burn that objective. Turn 3, I'm going to burn the middle objective. I didn't burn the third one. I was considering it, but he killed me off his own objective because I went for the turn 4 one, but he killed me well before I got a chance to do that. But yeah, that was lovely. I was a little frazzled by this point. I think most of us were. I think you played quite well, and I think Paul probably played quite as well. But Lee, myself, and Jack all made some stinkers that round.
Yeah, let's talk about Lee.
Well, before we do, let's talk about me. I forgot to draw tactical cards in round 2. So Dave very kindly.
Why couldn't you do that in my turn?
So as I was saying earlier on, you can actually do that and still max your secondaries, but that's not quite what I meant.
No, Dave very kindly allowed me to draw them at the end of the turn, and it was 2 action secondaries. I didn't, there was no, I didn't say, could I have done? I'd shot everything. I was like, cool, I don't score anything.
I'm that's fine.
Get your CP.
I did bin one off, yeah. I was like, I'm not going to do cleanse. I'm burning these objectives. Get out of here. But yeah, that was a funny moment. Lee, should we talk about Lee's?
Yeah, we should talk about Lee. So Lee, I haven't captained a team at a teams event properly before. I'd done it once when we went up to Element with a 4-man, but I haven't really been doing it since. Obviously, we've kind of upskilled on the teams front over the last 6 months. So this was the first time doing it when you're like aware of all the things you need to be keeping track of. So I have to go around and check and ask everyone how they're doing every round, which I quite enjoy doing. But also, you know what people hate? Being asked how their game is going before it's done. People really don't like it. You come over and you go, "Hey, it's going," and they're like, "I don't know," and then you go on your way. But I went past Lee playing Jamie East, CSM into Deathguard, which he'd been fairly happy about going in. And it's about turn 2, and I'm asking, "How's it going?" And he goes, "Yeah, should be absolutely fine. Should be good. Feeling good." And then at the end of the game, it's a 10-10. He's drawn with Jamie East, 10-10. And so we ask him at dinner, what happened? You felt like you're in a good position. CSM, obviously, one of the strongest armies in the game. How did Jamie East manage to claw himself to a 10-10? And Lee just forgot to bring his obliterators in from Deep Strike.
How many?
6 of them.
Oh, all 6. Okay.
6 of them. Yeah. So that's a lot of output that was lacking. That meant that Jamie obviously was able to bully the mid board and take full advantage of the situation. And by the time they realised what had happened, it would they'd obviously done all the shooting and got into stuff, so it wasn't one that they could be taking anything back on.
Sorry, is this the same Jamie East that on the mission where you can make primary objectives, the ritual? Is this the same Jamie East that didn't do that at all with his opponent?
It is that one.
Spent the whole time fighting over the middle objective.
That's right.
To be fair, that benefits Death Guard pretty heavily.
Maybe that's something we need to look into as an option for if we get the ritual. But I love that. They're like, fuck it, no.
They just didn't know.
Rituals are for cowards. I'm going in.
That's even better. Was the mission in round 3 where you burn objectives, and someone was saying one of the players who was newer to competitive play burned their own objective.
Yeah.
Bold strategy, Colin.
It did not pay off for him. I think we can say. But that was great. Then we went and had pizza, had a good time.
We did. I'll shout out to Kieran as well. I've not played Kieran before from our team. He's a lovely lad, and obviously 2 Baneblade don't like Grav is the answer. We had a nice time, but it was not going to be a game just because 2 massive tanks that can't hide and a lot of Votann anti-tank wasn't a good combo.
That happened a couple of times to him. I know he had issues against Pull, where 1.5 of them died to turn 1.
Yeah, but he did win best sport, or he tied for best sport, and he won best army with his lovely, beautifully painted creek.
So it was riveting. It
was riveting. Well, I was riveted for sure. What was round 4, Ed?
Round 4, that was War Masters. That was. We knew we were going to have to beat them to take the event. That was the one that we were sort of not worried about, but I guess this was the one that we were like.
For me, it was them and Legion. I was concerned
about. Oh, sure. But I mean, like by this point, we'd already. Against
by this stage, yes, I agree.
Yeah. So that was. Yeah, it was. My matrix was horrendous. I think I had 1-3 on here. I think I had 2-2-2-3-3. And this was the mission where you get 3 points for holding a primary objective, and you get 3 additional points if you have a character on it. And you can have as many characters on as many objectives as you want. And you get 1 per objective with a character on. Now, I didn't read the mission pack, so I was running 1. Do you know how many sites of power powered up from my characters in that game?
None.
So I played against Nick, who was a really lovely chap. We had a really nice, tight, precise game, which is great. I love playing those sorts of games. It wasn't like he wasn't arsey. He wasn't like, oh no, you need to do this. He was very particular with his own movement, and I was the same with mine. It was just a great, respectful game. Had a lovely time. And we were talking afterwards, and I said, I just like when I put you down as a 3, but like this primary I couldn't do anything about, because my list gives up secondary points for free. You expect a good army playing against Chaos Knights to get 40 if they've got like ways to deal with your war dogs and then teleport homers, because that's easy as shit. And I've got to get 50 on the primary and to try and scrap for as many points as I can, and I just couldn't get the primary. I think I got like 25 on primary or something like that. Shout out to the flash kits with Captain Badrick in. My God,
nuts? Aren't they nuts?
So terrifying. Yeah. I looked at them, it's like, what? And then I saw the rerolls. I was like, yeah, fine. And then he said, oh yeah, and they've got lethal hits once per game. I was like, oh, okay. And then he shot me in Overwatch. I was like, oh. Didn't kill any models in Overwatch, but made me sweat.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They're a real ace in the whole unit. Yeah. Real ace in the whole unit. And in general, in this round, we'll talk about it in more detail when we do No Iron Team, but I think, felt like we paired reasonably well.
I think as well as we could have done.
Yeah, Paul James was on Stop Jack Tight duty. Jack Tight had a nice CSM list. Jack went into Andrew Bourbon in the Town Mirror. And I was paired into Gustav, who was on Chaos Knights. And this was quite big in the round, because this ended up being quite a heavy defeat for Gustav, who's a lovely guy and a really good player. because they put us on. There was a weird board on table one where there's like a sort of fortress in one corner where the terrain's a bit skewed. One side of it's like quite a dense town. The other side's got like fortress walls with a gate you can open if you're near it. That's quite fun. But it was deeply asymmetrical, and I think the plan was put me in on the fortress side so that I didn't have anywhere to hide, and then he'd shoot me to death with Melter. But I won the roll-off for the side, so I put him on the fortress side, and then I won the roll-off to go first, and then the Chaos Knights spent the whole game in the fortress being shot to shit by Votan, who were all over the board. And the fact that Gustav and I had actually played a couple of weeks ago in a club game, completely by coincidence, was also quite nice. Because
the Sons of War
was quite familiar. Yeah, the Cambridge War.
The Cambridge War Game
Club.
Right,
yeah. But Gustav took it like an absolute champ, I have to say, because I've said we had a couple of really tight games where he'd been lovely, and then this was obviously from quite early on. It was evident that this was going to be quite big for the round, but he just kept having a great time and being really funny, and we just had the best time. So shout out to Gustav, you're a gent, and I look forward to seeing out and about more. And I think that plus something that happened on Paul and Jack Tight's board ultimately carried the day here, because what happened on the Jack Tight Paul James board was Paul had just picked a table at random. It had a big cathedral thingy on it, and it turned out that cathedral thingy was allowed to have infantry inside it, so it was like the world's biggest magic box ever. And Paul obviously put 10 Deathwing Terminators inside it, at which point they can then go all sorts of places. And shout out to Jack Tight, actually, because when they realised, neither of them had realised beforehand, and when they realised, Paul offered to say, well, let's not play it that way, right? If it's going to be too distorting of the matchup. And Jack was like, no, not at all. We'll play it as it's dealt. That's the rules, and that's how we're going to do it. And obviously in this, it completely reconfigured how that matchup went, or certainly how Jack thought it went. Obviously, Paul's always harder to play than most people ever think. Like, the Dark Angels are never easy to put away when Paul is the pilot. And he turned that into a 12-8 win instead, which was huge for our round. So I think
instead of the 20-0 that Jack
instead of the 20-0 that I think War Masters were anticipating. Yeah. So that carried us home in the end, those two games.
For reference, because you said it's the biggest, box that you can hide infantry, and people aren't going to understand. It was easily over 12 by 12 inches.
Yeah.
This thing was massive.
It was.
This is the board that I played on turn one. I staged like 4 War Dogs behind it.
It's like a really lovely old, almost cathedral type building.
Yeah.
But like square, not sort of a. Is it? I've run out of shapes. It's big and square.
It's like a weird, almost like a hexagon shape. It looked huge.
That's what I was thinking of.
It looked almost like you had a landing platform on top. Yeah. The visual guy has to come in and help.
Yeah, and so that snuck us past War Masters. I think Lee Churchwood narrowly beat Jamie Bolcom as well, and that was enough. And Jack played out a heroic 10-10 draw with Andrew Borden, which is really impressive because Andrew's a fantastic player.
That's impossible.
So I imagine they both took homers and bring it down and just looked at each other and booped in the middle and shot each other's vehicles and called it a day. But I don't know. I didn't see the
game. That was round 4, wasn't it?
That was round 4, yeah.
In the Tau Mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was stood next to him, and at one point on round 2, Jack's opponent just sort of looked over to myself and Nick, and he says, "I've realised I'm losing, so I full sent it. So I don't think it was at all the casual, relaxed game you're imagining. I think it was violence."
I think they were both sweating the whole time and just not making eye contact.
I think so. Yeah, it looked very sort of like full on.
Yeah,
like,
it was
there was
intense.
A lot happening.
I think they were both talking a lot afterwards, so I think they both got a lot out of it as fellow Tau players. So that's exciting.
They exchanged numbers and tetras.
And then we had our final round, and at one stage it looked like our own heroic Legion were going to take out Sons of War, so maybe we weren't going to play Sons of War, and I was quite excited for that because obviously Sons of War are quite good. So I was like, we'll take Grimdark Garage instead, who are also good, to be fair. But in the end, obviously, because of the confusion with scores and stuff, it ended up being a draw. So we paired into Paul Bridges' Sons of War in the final game, and they were lovely. And this one was relatively straightforward, I think. I think it was just little wins across the board, and then Paul drew in a pull-off, as is maybe to be anticipated. And so that took us home, and we won Saffron Slam teams. That was really fun. We had a very, very good time, and we were all very, very chuffed to have managed to put, I guess, a bunch of stuff we've been working on into practice, and that was nice. I guess we can talk about how that came about to an extent when we get into goal setting in a moment. By far the coolest thing about it was that we got these very cool. Lewis had printed these Swarm Lord trophies. So it's like a sort of bust thing, but it's got a proper big angry Swarm Lord on it. We'll get a photo of the trophy that Jack has painted gold up on the socials at some point so you can see it, because it's very, very cool.
Also, I do have tournament runner approval to put it on a base and run it as a Swarm Lord at an event that Lewis is running, so that may happen.
Awful.
Yeah.
Great.
That's good. So yeah, we were super chuffed with that, and it was, as I said, the Saffron events are amazing. They capture that sort of mix of silly and creative with good, decent, but sporting competitive play as well. And I think everyone that we played into really lived up to all those things. They were fun, but they were also very good players. We had a great time. Really, really nice. Right. Well, let's talk goal setting. Let's think about where we've come from and where we are heading. We're going to talk a little bit about where 6++ is at as a team at the moment and looking ahead to the rest of the edition and the rest of this season. And then we'll think a little bit more about generally about how what you can do for goal setting, what we've done, where we'd like to go next, and then we'll do some podcast questions. So Chris, take us through it.
Yeah, so kind of this will be coming at it from more of the approach of like the competition side. We spoke about like the channel when we have goals and aims and that sort of thing, but that's more of a year thing, you know, like from January. Whereas this is more a season, UKTC season. So last year we finished 13th. I think we were kind of like 11th as you hit LGT, and we ended up 13th, and we kind of set. We set ourselves the challenge of 10th, top 10 in the in the country, and it's really important, and that'll be a running theme. I think it's not kind of it's about the how, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's how are you going to it's processes, not outcomes. That's the phrase I was thinking of. And that's going to be like the fundamental thing here as we talk through both team and individual things. It's how are you going to achieve that? Yes, you can set yourself the goal of a 3-2 or 4-1 or coming in the top 10, but what are you actually going to do to achieve that? And obviously the way you do that is by playing better. So in order to play better, how do you get better? I think one of the most awesome things about having like a team is that you can kind of work together to try and achieve those and try and improve each other. So as a team, we've kind of, as the year has gone on, you know, we have definitely improved as players just from playing more. And obviously probably the single best way of becoming a better player is by playing with people who are better than you. That is almost certainly the single best way of becoming better because you learn from them. And that certainly helps us. We set up our own little kind of section called Kick On for those of us who really want to push ourselves. And we meet once a week on kind of TTS and we just play games, kind of maybe 2v2 or 1v1 but we've got lots of people offering advice and talking about how we could go through it. And not only does that help you to kind of spot the silly mistakes but it enables you to speak through your processes, but also learn the other armies. Sometimes I set like little homework where we've had to learn like other armies or build lists for other armies or in a certain style, and it's just really getting us to think about 40k in a different way. And those processes are enabling us to try and hit our goals, and so therefore we were able to achieve 10th.
We did.
I think in the end. So we got our top 10, and you know, you look down at the other teams who are like below you or above you, and you know, you're like, wow, we're competing against these sorts of teams. And that wasn't even with an incredible set of 10 results, to be fair. I mean, you've got, like, there's some RTTs in there, wins and stuff, so there's definitely room for improvement. Like as we hit the end of that season, like quite a few of us were consistently hitting 4-1s or 5-0s at smaller events, and that's kind of where we feel we are kind of now at that stage. So that'll be as we kind of hit this new season. Obviously, we believe Zach is changing the team rankings. If you go on the website, it says team rankings coming February 2024. So presumably that means he's thinking might well be just for the UKTC team events.
Could be.
Could be. We don't know for certain. It'd be a shame because we did just come first and third at a team
that'd be
event.
really
So,
annoying if that doesn't count
if
for
you're
anything.
listening, if you could open it up to all team events, that would be appreciated. But so for us, like in terms of the processes, it's going to be very much that kind of that aspect of how can we push each other on. I think for me personally, I think I'd like us to have more practice weekends in person. TTS is all well and good, but I know full well I play way shitter on it than I do in real life.
That's a polite way of putting it.
And
it's important not to see it as a substitute for real games, right? It's more of a nice extra that does an important job, but it's not.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to like try out some lists or something. But I could never play competitive games at all on there. So I'd quite like us to get, even if it's just a day, just like having those sorts of things but it's all about constructive practice, and we've spoken about this on various other videos and podcasts before about how if you want to try and improve, just playing a general sort of half-assed competitive game with your mate doesn't really achieve anything in terms of, happy to learn your rules a bit better and maybe what your opponent's going to be thinking. But who cares what happens in that game, right? What you want to be doing is taking away really useful information from
exactly
that.
Process rather than outcome.
What was the like the take backs and this has probably just ended the game, so we'll go back and we'll kind of do this thing differently and we'll see what happens. And it's really, really hard to do, but it's about leaving your ego at the door. Like we all want to play and beat our mates, right? Like it's as simple as that. And
then go on WhatsApp and tell everyone we beat our mates.
Yeah, exactly. It's so easy
All I have.
to that. Oh well, we started off quite friendly, but it's just turn 3, and so I've got an in here. But actually, like that, it's not achieving anything in the long run. And if you want yourself to get better as a player, then you want your opponent to be doing the best thing that they can to make it harder for you, so that you in the future will know how to adapt to those situations.
Completely.
So as a team, in terms of our goal setting, we're obviously looking to maintain that top 10 if that's an option. But I think you would see it from our individual players. I feel like as a team in the competitive UKTC scene, we are getting a bit more recognisable now. Definitely. Obviously, in the last teams event, the big one at Northampton, we got to the semi-finals. I'm not going to say, well, if we don't get to the semi-finals of the ITT, then it's been a failure, because you don't measure it by how you do in one particular event, because as we've said before, there's so many variables for particular one-off events. Like we could just hit Team England round 1.
Yeah, of course.
Then
we just have to beat them.
Then we just have to beat them. Easy,
and
mate.
then once we beat them,
then we'll beat Team Poland. Yeah,
but I think with teams coming at it again from that process angle, we have done a bunch of things that make us better at teams. As again, I think Saffron has just demonstrated, right? We think in terms of matrices now. We've watched and listened to a bunch of the international players over kind of WTC and soaked up a lot from that. We have played multiple teams events with a good squad of people as well, and I think all of that learning adds up and counts, right? And we want to just keep doing that.
Absolutely. So that's kind of us as a team. We pride ourselves on being fun to play against. We have players in our team. We know not all. There's like over 20 of us, right? Not all of us are kind of interested in trying to push ourselves. Some of us just want to have a good time and play 40k. And whenever we've got the February teams, we've got tickets go on sale for the May teams on Friday. We've just done sign up for that. We've already hit 15 people, and a bunch of those are kind of like the more fun time players. So they're still loving their teams events and stuff. So we're covering the broad thing, and that's always actually one of my main priorities. 6++ started from a group of friends who were just having a good time, and I would always want us to be representing all aspects of the kind of the competitive scene, be it trying to push ourselves as high as we can, and also just having a great time. And I'd never want to lose that. So the goal will be over this season to, absolutely try and push ourselves and be successful as a team, but make sure that we still make those players in the team who want to just throw dice, have fun and socialise, they're still feeling part of the team and having a good time as well.
Yeah, 100%. And again, if we want an example of that, Chris for this weekend was like, I want to captain Legion. I want to make sure that we've got people who understand, pairings and matrix and all that stuff spread out across the teams and give everyone decent support and back the players up, and then captains Legion to third place. So it's that in action, right? It's making sure everyone's getting involved and everyone's being looked after as well as a big kind of dysfunctional family as we kind of are.
So dysfunctional.
It's so dysfunctional, it's unreal, but it bobs along. Jamie East has been texting me about Votan all day, by the way. Like,
nice.
all day. He's been building Votan constantly.
What a hero.
He's incredibly excited.
All of his Death Guard is in. Have you rebought and repainted it all?
Oh, gosh. I mean, Votan are just ranged Death Guard.
Yeah.
But you know what's good in 10th edition? Ranged. You know what's not good in 10th edition?
And also Death Guard.
Oh, dear.
All right. Let's that's the team. And obviously, I think exactly what metrics for teams progress we will see what Zach gives us, but we definitely want to continue to be visible and involved and contesting, especially locally. Like, we're at a level where we contest very high up when we play locally, and that's great. We'll keep doing that, and we'll try and make as much of a splash as we can on the wider circuit as well. But let's think about, I guess, goal setting and achieving goals at the level of an individual player in this game. And I guess Chris has already given us one important piece of advice with thinking about processes and how you get there and what you do to get there, rather than rather than getting over focused on what it is, what sort of end goal or end measurement you might want. Have you guys got any other tips, any other sort of positives or negatives to think about? John, do you want to go?
So when I got back into going to tournaments at the tail end of 9th, my biggest frustration and weakness was I'd go to a tournament and I'd not played the matchup. So I went to it completely unprepared. First time I went into World Eaters, I just won't go too far forward. I'll go forward a little bit, and got absolutely stomped. And I felt very frustrated that I'd got quite a close game that kind of drifted away from me purely because I didn't have the prep. So coming into 10th edition, it was kind of like, right, clean slate. I can do some practice. We were doing kick on as part of the prep for LGT.
Yeah.
So I just went, I'm going to try to do as many of the matchups as possible and just get that experience in. So I was as well as kind of finding people I knew that had the armies, I also went to RTTs because it was a way of getting 3 quick games in, new people, new armies, a bit unusual. So it gave me the kind of that knowledge. And for me, I found having that gave me kind of a good up that then, for instance, this weekend, my matrix then could be accurate data because I knew what the matchups would be like. And then also how to build to kind of deal with them, because I still try to make my lists a little bit more me, but with the good stuff, and being able to not compromise too much makes it a more rewarding game for me as well. So I think having that whole playing each of the different matchups, if I can, I don't think it's necessarily that practical, but at least trying to, or
I
just
think
like
as a goal, I think it's a really it's a process you can always be working on, because the nature of the game is that the armies you need to play into basically changes all the time. The set of things that are out there changes all the time. That's one of the things we love about the game, but it's also exhausting. So you almost need to be staying on that treadmill and making sure, if you want to be performing at a high level, you need to know the matchups and the lists and what's popular and what people around you are trying. So I think that's a really positive thing to be doing. We got any other thoughts on this, guys?
I guess know what sort of goals you can work towards would be my point. So for me, having like this isn't going to work for everyone. Some people will want more ephemeral goals, just sort of like, I want to be better in this regard. But for me, when I got back into the hobby for LGT, I guess it was 3 years ago now, that was great, had a good time there, went 3-2, and I was like, cool, I'm going to play more of this. And sort of like a month or two in after that, I was like, okay, I'm doing pretty well. I went on a string of tournaments where I was going to one every 2 weeks, and I was really getting the reps in. I was like, I want to see if I can be, I think it was something like top 50 in the country. And then ended the season around there. I don't remember the exact, but it was something around there. I was really happy with that. So I was like, oh, okay, so I've got to set a goal for myself. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to aim to be top 100 globally for my next year. And then I was just outside of that, but, again, really happy with that. Then coming into this year, I was like, oh, I'm going to be doing some content, and then there's a new edition coming out, and I want to play more things that'll, I want to improve as a player and play, different things, and just kind of didn't set any real goals and just haven't done anything. It doesn't help that I've been vocal about how little I've enjoyed 10th at the start of it. I think the game's significantly better now. I'm enjoying it a lot more.
That's good to hear.
But I've typically set my goals on the basis of an ITC season. So, the end of January to the end of January. This time round, I've kind of renewed interest at the start of the UKTC season. So I should probably set some commitments. What commitment should I go for? What do we reckon?
Ooh. Is there a faction takes your fancy? I guess that's always one angle you can look at it from.
No. I don't. I think, and I don't think personally for me the faction rankings are worth anything other than feeling smug about playing it. Like, there are like the top, if you're like the best or the second best, yes. But in my first year of coming back, like, it was Jack Tight was number 1 in Orcs, and then me and Paul Martin were like chasing him for the number 2 spot, and I fell off a bit at the end. But like, that was the first time I'd played competitive Warhammer ever. So like, that's kind of set my view on kind of anyone can get the, like, 3rd, 4th, 5th rankings on a faction, unless it's, NIDS or whatever.
You might be luckier than you know, Ed.
Well, I don't want to be
everyone
lucky.
can.
I want to be good.
Yeah.
So I don't value the faction rankings at all, personally.
Sure.
I'll be honest, I don't really value the like UK rankings.
You're so hipster.
Yeah, he's very hipster. I might actually just mute him and ask someone else. None of this is any fucking use for anybody.
It's not to say you shouldn't, but like, back to my point, you've got to find what motivates you.
That is true. So that's a very interesting. Let's get to the heart of you, Ed. What does motivate you?
Glory.
Well, be the best in the world.
Be the best, the very best. Like no one ever was.
There is a weird temptation with that, though, right? Like, if you're chasing being good at a specific faction, and then you're not in love with playing the faction, you're then doing it for the wrong reasons. And I did it for a year where I played Orcs for a whole season, and by the end of it, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do get that.
Yeah,
I
just
think
don't do that.
The thing, I think that's absolutely one side to it, and I think the other side to it is that chasing those kinds of faction things also gives you a reason to be playing it outside of just when it happens to be at its peak, right? It's an excuse to play it at other points. It's a nice reason to get multiple events in with one faction, and helps you bed in whilst you're collecting something or learning an army. So it's nice as a backdrop to that, like Votan, which I absolutely will be chasing and seeing where I can get up to. Absolutely, because that's a good fun time. So Ed, the very best.
Yeah, but like, I'm obviously not going to achieve that in a year, and I'm not as good as I was this time last year. Just realistically, like, I think I was at a really good level last year, and I've just not been getting the reps in. Like, this ITC season from last February, I've only gone to 5 events. My 6th score is an event that I dropped out of.
Oh wow!
And so did his camera, apparently. There we go.
Trying to achieve last year. So yeah, I guess this UKTC season, it'll just be a case of I don't know, let's go for top 50 again, but then actually pick it up for the ITC season when that comes around next year. That's probably my goal.
That sounds great. Yeah, I think that'd be good. It's certainly very doable. And what are you going to do towards that? Just go to a bunch of events? Is that the plan?
I'll just win the ones I go to.
Yeah, just win all the ones.
The process is that.
Well, based off of this weekend, that's achievable. So
yeah, I'm really finding it difficult to schedule in events this year, unfortunately, because I've got lots of stuff going on outside of 40k. But no real life stuff.
He's tapped out.
So yeah, I'm going to try to get through 1 or 2 events this year, which will probably be like a small GT and an RTT. So the first step will be just win both of those if I can.
Yep.
And
actually,
well, I mean, like, if you go into a 25-30 man GT and you're aiming to be like top 100 in the world, I'm not saying I'm there now, but if that's the aim, you've got to be winning these events, and then you've got to try and scale it up to do either 5-0s at big events or try and win those as well, which is definitely outside of my reach at the moment. But there's no reason it should be, in 6 months' time.
Absolutely.
And are you going to focus on particular factions or just see what takes your fancy?
Depends. I can't play something that bores me, but I don't want to play anything that's bad. So I like the middle ground. I like the third best army. Like, I really enjoyed the Orc Buggy list when it was really oppressive, but there were two armies that were worse than it. So that was a good time. So I've got to find whatever that faction is.
It's finding that meta spot, isn't it? And I do think, I mean, this is, if you are listening and you're interested in sort of pushing and trying to do well across a chunk of time, the start of an edition is a very good time to do it, because you can have a very real grasp on what is out there in terms of the army rules, in terms of the books coming out, and you're not coming in when there's already like 20 books there and you're trying to work out what the hell's going on. Obviously, you've got the indexes, but they're fairly simple in terms of how much is actually going on in them. It's 6 strats and some rules, right, amidst the units. So it's a very nice time to like get on that wheel and start just following the books as they come out, following what's good, figuring out how you deal with and adapt and play into those different things, and kind of carrying on. That's exactly what we're doing behind the scenes with Kick On. One of the things we do there is, when a new book is out, we get some people who know it well to go and start figuring out what's going on in it and solving it. And the NIDS players did this really well, and the Space Marines players are all sat on their asses not bothering to do it. But I'm
doing videos instead. Unfortunately,
I'm going to kick them and make them do it. Because
we're just monetizing it, mate. What are you talking about?
Yeah, monetizing. Yeah. Absolutely. Scrivo, how about you, mate? What are your kind of goals looking forward?
So for me, it's about maintaining that kind of level of preparation for events. And towards the end of kind of leading into LGT, I was like, I want a positive win ratio. And I was really fixated on that. Probably not the healthiest thing to expect, especially with the way that my Space Marine lists tend to work. They tend to be quite drawy. And LGT, I think one of my games I lost by 11 points. Everything else was within kind of the parameters of a low or high kind of draw in sort of WTC teams formats. So like 2 points wins, 2 points losses.
Yeah.
I think so I shouldn't be worried about that. I should be looking at where I'm scoring, how I'm scoring, and all of them are high losses. Like, I was in sort of my 60s. Like, my draw was 88 into Chaos Demons.
Yep.
That's bonkers as a result. I've never had a draw that's that close. It's normally because it's been a time problem. So to me, I was like, right, I need to fixate on what I can impact, and that's actually quite healthy, rather than just, I want to be a 4-1 player, because, it'd be lovely. But if it lines up, great. But the reality is, round 2, I'm going to end up going into Ed, and I'm going to ruin my score. So it's going to be fine.
And it's something that you and I had talked about, right? Which is, again, it's that process thing. I think we talked about it a while ago. It's like, make yourself hard to beat. Start there. Start with lists and armies that are very tough to put away. You're always going to get a certain amount of points. You're really making them have to work. And I think your Dark Angels lists over the last few years have really done that.
And sticking really to them suited me. I don't think it will suit everyone, but the fact that I've just gone, right, I'm focusing on this army, refining it, iterating it, and then by the time the books come out, I'm like, cool, I've got a foundation that I can then grow from, which is it's fantastic.
And that's a choice you've made, right? Because you've had other factions that have caught your eye, but you've decided, because I feel like I'm making progress with Dark Angels, I'm going to keep at it and keep seeing where I can go.
Yeah, because being a jack of all trades that can play each of the games okay was not rewarding in 8th edition to me. I'm past that. I want to have rewarding games.
Cool. Well, we'll see how it goes. I think new book is out now, and you'll get your Dark Angels book, so hopefully lots of opportunities to
got till March
to
master this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. How about yourself, Chris? What are you thinking about in terms of goals?
So my success over the last few months has been ably supported by Index Eldari. So it's actually the second
sponsored
half,
by
the second half of the UKTC season has been Eldar smashing everyone in 10th edition events. So I've been on a pretty good run, kind of like in terms of your 4-1s, 5-0s. But for me, it's about, I would definitely say over the last year, I've kind of like improved as a player, but it's for me, it's the consistency that I feel can be lacking. Like, if I was to compare how I played game 1 at the weekend to how I played against Jack, like if I was able to play like how I did against Jack consistently, then I would feel in a lot happier of a place to be able to take on kind of like the more top end kind of like players, and also just win those middle ground games consistently, no matter what my faction. Obviously, Eldar have been really strong, and that has kind of just pulled me through. Even when I haven't played particularly well, you've still got that to fall back on. You won't always have that to fall back on. So for me, it's very much about being happy in myself. The way I can kind of measure it is in a, when you have those rounds and your opponent starts moving, and you're like, oh shit, they can do this now. That's happened less and less. Like, or I've kind of done this, and that's like kind of the way I kind of measure it. I'm still not at that stage where I'd like to be in terms of like being able to predict a few turns ahead, maybe picking up an overall game plan for the matchup on enacting it on the table. I can still be a bit responsive, and that sort of thing. And that obviously just comes from, I think, when you're practicing, having those clear steps to be thinking about each turn and trying to. Because when you're in an event, like I was like, right, at this team's event, I'm really going to be trying to predict my score at the end of every turn, being like making sure I'm paying attention to primary and secondary. Did I fuck? I was too busy thinking about my teammates and the matrix and just trying to play through my game. Like a game into Jack's Tau, I was still deploying homes with my Whaley per turn 5 when I'd maxed my secondaries turn 3. I wasn't paying.
This is it. You need to watch play your cards right.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't getting my score down on my app and just like properly analyzing it the way I should have been. I do that sometimes. I just don't do it consistently. Because I'm just like just playing the game. So I think for me, it's about that, trying to improve that consistency of play, which comes from practicing. I don't get to practice as much as I like, and I loathe TTS. So it's trying to find that middle ground there. Obviously, I've got a select few factions I enjoy kind of playing. I was very fortunate. I just started collecting AdMech. They were broken as fuck. Then I kind of had the Custodes army for when they were really good. And then I switched to Harlequins just after the Void Weave. Played all the way with them until they were blitzed. And then I played Janari, which was really good fun. Because I was on the Elf train, I carried on the Elf train. It just so happened they were really strong. So we're at the stage now where, I must admit, there were 1 or 2 games over the weekend where I was a bit bored, especially when I took fixed. As soon as I took fixed and deploying behind enemy lines, it was like, all right, so my plan for this one turn is make sure I've got a unit in your deployment zone. Cool, how am I going to enact to that? And it was just a bit like, this isn't really fun. And maybe part of the reason I played a bit better into Jack was because I did go tactical. Just because it just offered a bit more of a challenge. But I've got a bit bored of the Elder. So, as we know, I'm building up the Grey Knights at the moment, and we're going to see what happens. You've got to imagine Eldar are going to get hit pretty fucking hard from January. Right? And so it would, at the same time, Necrons and AdMech, 2 of my armies, will have just got books. I've been building the Grey Knight. So my goal really is kind of feeling like I'm probably going to pick one of those factions and stick from January and stick with them through till the end of the season and try and aim for top 3 in that particular kind of faction.
Yeah, that's a good goal.
Ed's absolutely right. Like the faction rankings can have huge issues simply because sometimes you just go, this faction was the flavour. Like Paul struggled with this with Dark Angels, right?
Yeah. End of night, it was awful.
Yeah, because Manny's won all these events with Dark Angels, cool, so I can't.
It absolutely fucked me with GSC this year as well, where I was having a great time with GSC, and then they got a little bit too good, and it was like, okay, now I'm sharing it with some very, very good names. Exactly, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, and you kind of, so you couldn't ever set yourself the goal of kind of like, I'm going to be number 1, because you don't know what's coming. But for me,
it's beyond your control.
Like top 3 would imply that I have played consistently well with the faction, be it Grey Knights. I would imagine the only way AdMech would get highly competitive is if they're broken, because no one just picks up and plays AdMech, really. They've got a very small player base.
I wonder if it's something to do with the massive fucking cost.
It's an expensive army to run, yeah. Necron's obviously got a huge player base. They must admit they don't particularly appeal to me unless they're a flying gun line, which I can't imagine will happen. I imagine it will be Grey Knights for me. But we will see. But yeah, for me, as
Grey Knights feel like one of those ones where it's like you're not going to win any games just by turning up. You will just have to play it well.
You got to play your ass off.
Which is, if you are feeling a bit bored, is quite an exciting place to put yourself in, right?
I kind of
And
feel
in
like
King's
you're
Edge.
where I was at the end of like this time last year when I just played a load of Tyranids. And you
Yeah, I
just
had
go
it
like,
post Drakari as well.
this kind of just played itself.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't make
You do the
mistakes.
same
But
things over and over, and you're like, "Yep, okay, cool." And sometimes nearly all the time it works, and sometimes it doesn't quite work.
And I think it's good to have runs on those kinds of armies because you kind of get up in the high places and you remind yourself that you can hang up there and you can play well and do whatever. And then but then after a while you're like, oh, I want to try something different and sort of discover something, I guess.
prove to myself that it's me and it's not
Yeah.
the fact.
Yeah.
It's the Elder.
Even though it obviously is you, the army will be a factor, but plenty of people faceplant with good armies. We've all seen it. So it's absolutely doable. No, that's exciting, man. It'll be really interesting. And that's another thing. If you are goal setting, it's at the start of an edition. An edition is a wild ride. Entropic Tyranny, by the way, glad you're here. Best name in our chat at all times. Love it. Has GW finally stopped Codex power creep? Well, we will see. It's always a bit quiet at the start.
Remember what happened last edition?
Always looks okay at the start.
Remember the 9th edition
nutty.
Space Marines book?
Yeah.
It's a whirlwind of change, mate.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. At the moment, the landscape is lovely, and that means you can kind of run whatever you like, which is very nice. And I love those moments where it's like, it doesn't matter what army you take out of a whole bunch because you can compete pretty reasonably with most things.
Not Death Guard, but you know.
And what will happen inevitably is that at some points across the edition, some books will be more out of whack than others, and the meta will shift, and you'll have moments where certain things are very dominant. If those are armies you play or you like, or armies you're interested in getting into, there are opportunities there. If they're not, then there are maybe times to take a downtime or relax or do something else and not worry about it as well. But editions are very up and down, and I think with your goals, you need to kind of allow that sometimes there might be whole 3 or 4 months where the game is in a very bizarre state because of a particular book, a particular situation.
I think it might be less of a thing this time though, because they're not changing the data sheets, so there's less failure points.
I'm hopeful. Hopeful because actually one of the things I always felt when we got the indexes was that if you ignore the 4 or 5 that were crazy, the rest were all pretty sensibly handled, and the data definitely reflects that right now. It really does, considering how many indexes dropped at once you bring in those top set, it's not too bad.
Once you have multiple balance changes, the game's not bad.
Yeah.
Once they've had multiple chances to fix their fuck ups.
Absolutely. But again, it's only 3 months, however long we've been doing it. Yeah. Not long at all.
But the 9th codexes, they very much dropped and felt like they were written in a different kind of bracket to then the next wave.
Yeah.
These, because of the indexes, we could be getting them slightly out of order as well.
Interesting
so maybe there's that kind of
the
dynamic
indexes, because the first few, the index has basically been replicated.
Yeah.
Will that stay the same? Will that stay the same? For Drakari players around the world, I hope to God not, but we will see. It's going to be interesting. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of similar. I think goal wise, I don't have any books for armies I love coming out until probably Chaos Space Marines, so that's ages away. So I've got some Flesh Tearers if I want to play with the Marines book, but it's kind of like dabble and keep playing and contesting. Votan are good right now, so I can happily finish that collection and have fun with it whilst also doing all right. And I think we'd like to just keep competing. I'd like to keep playing into as good players as I possibly can, as often as I can, because I really enjoy that, and that's how I learn. And then just doing all the same things I have been doing to make sure I understand the game as well as I can, really, I think.
Maybe I should play Custodes.
Me?
No, maybe I should.
I mean, you can if you want.
To prove everyone wrong.
Yeah, MSU Custodes.
Yeah.
3-man units.
Of Terminators, yeah.
I hope they take like 150 points off the bike squads, and then you can just go absolutely mental with.
I would.
Free
I get it. The thing is, though, we spoke about this last time, didn't we? They could literally be 50 points a model, and you're still like.
No, at 50 points a model, you 100% do.
If you're shoving like 5 of them down their face,
they're basic, buddy. They're shield guard. They've got lance, and you put a captain in there. They move in your opponent's turn. Like
that's pretty.
I'm taking them at 50 points a model.
Yeah.
Maybe make the unit size change, because isn't it capped at 3 at the moment?
You got
I don't care.
Down to 3.
I want to play MSU.
See, I joked to Lee Jones earlier that I've got a set of 3 of them sat there on sprue, and no one's going to want them. So
No.
I want Games Watch to prove me wrong.
Yeah. Well, they just need to tweak the points. The rules on them are fundamentally good, apart from being really glass cannon. But if they're cheap enough, like I'm fucking running 2 of those in a captain twice, and I'm just going to go, oh, you've mispositioned? Cool. Here I come, 30 inches.
All around the turret.
And
everywhere.
I know Chaos Knights can walk through walls, but that's only 2 of my 13 models. Like, this whole moving around terrain thing, I think, is overblown. And that's, like...
Says the man that spent a weekend doing it.
No, that's what I've literally just said. I can move 2 models out of the 13 through walls. You just have to accept that there are slight funnels. But if you're moving 12 inches, like, you can go around terrain pretty acceptably. It's and now you can move over your own models as well. I don't think, like, it sucks compared to what it was. I'm not denying that, but I think it's not too bad. I'm all right with it.
Yeah, it's okay. I think it's been all right so far. I've not played enough Drakari to know quite how bad it's got, but I quite like sided tiles for moving around buildings because they're so tiny. You just go boop, boop, nice and easy. I mean, I think that's all we have to say on goals, really. I feel like we've got a whole nice bunch of processes in place within our team that we all kind of encourage each other and make each other better on a daily basis, really. And it's just going to be a case of carrying that on. It has felt like we've all jumped into 10th from a pretty strong start point, so that's quite nice. And just have to kind of keep pushing and see. The more goes around of this crazy wheel you do, the more you understand it and can manage it to some extent. Right. Let's address some podcast questions and then we'll all call it a day. So if you have any further questions for us, do chuck them in chat. If there's any I missed, guys, please do feel free to dig them out. So.
Oh, we did have one here. Hick Dead. Ed, why do people who cut keys mend shoes?
Because there's not enough work going around for both of those. I'm sorry, mate. I haven't got a strong opinion on this one. Growing up in the UK, it's just something that you sort of think is normal. It might not be in the rest of the world, but you just like...
He's from Manchester, that's why. To him, that's quite exciting. No.
Oh, him, all right.
Yeah.
I see.
Existence UK. Tom, that Lisa Votan Battle Force for Xmas looks tasty to start an army with. Rock and Stone Episode 3, when?
So yes, buy that box. If you want to play Votan, probably buy 2 of those boxes because that's 20 Hearthguard. It's 2 Landforts, it's 2 Sagittars, it's a couple of the Champs, a couple of Grimnirs, which you may or may not use as much. But it's solid. It's all killer, no filler, and it will combo really, really well with the start collecting that's out there with all the warriors and the bikes and the berserks. So you can basically get the entire army I'm currently sat on together for probably less than I spent, so go and do it.
You can get the entire
fun
range.
Time to play Votan. I assume Votan might take a little hit at Christmas, but nothing that's going to kill them. I wouldn't think because they're not that bad.
Do you think it's going to be points?
I think probably just the rules. I'd say the points on the Sagittar. I think that's about the only thing that looks a bit silly. 100-point toughness 10 little vehicle might be a bit much, but we'll see.
With good guns.
Yeah, decent guns, definitely decent guns. But obviously, I'd say don't change them at all. But I would say that I think you have to always have an eye on if they're doing well and then you take other stuff down. That might be an issue. But let's see how they're sat after a couple more months because it's still just in that kind of is it bad, is it not kind of zone. It definitely feels very strong when I play it.
And to answer the actual question, Rock and Stone Episode 3, when?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. That'll be next week. And it's going to be a tier list. We're doing a Votan units tier list. It's going to be the Would You Like Me to Find You a Box Votan tier list. Cannot wait. Very excited. Jake and James are well up for it. And me and Jake are actually sounding out a GT to take Votan 2 together and do a little Rock and Stone vlog of our tournament. We'll probably go later in the year, probably the Toys of Mass Destruction GT. Are
you going to get a shirt with just rock on it and him to get one that just says stone on it?
Yeah, potentially.
That needs to happen.
Or just 7 dwarves outfits, something like that. It'd be good.
Please just go with 7 dwarves.
Which one would you go as?
Which one would I be?
Dopey?
Dopey. Oh, motherfucker.
I don't know the names, Tom. That's my excuse.
I think Dopey probably is about right, though, to be fair.
And what else is this?
Jake's bashful.
Oh, he is bashful as well.
Yeah, like, well, I'm just being all flirty.
Yeah.
You're my friend.
That's so right.
He actually wants to play for us in a teams event. Jake does.
Does he?
Yeah.
Does
yeah.
he?
He's collecting jerseys. That's
Yeah, he
all.
just wants a shirt, doesn't he?
Okay.
He's
we'd take
Thanosing
Jake along.
them.
So I want to see if Zach will let us run a team of all Votan players and just see how far. just see how. We'll promise we won't win. We just want to see how far we can go with it.
Just go back to that event that had 2 Imperial Knight players.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was less funny. Out of the podcast questions, and Chris, do keep fishing if we see
That's all of them.
Others.
I've answered the rest in chat.
We've got. Oh, we had one about practice and prep for tournaments. There's no substitute for playing games, but what are other ways you can prep for tournaments? I watch a lot of content, print the maps out, plan deployment, try to study lists and learn data sheets. Are there any other ways to supplement actual game time? I mean, that sounds very comprehensive to me.
Well, I answered it with,
did you?
With a video.
With the link, because I did.
Oh, yes, you did.
I did a video called A Guide to Preparing for and Playing in Warhammer 40k Tournaments. And it's gone down a hoot. I was reading the comments. I've nailed it. But no, I did a very in-depth discussion on kind of the different ways you can practice, which we kind of spoke about today and stuff, and as well as just like working out what to take and equipment and all that crap. So yeah, if you want to know how to prepare for and play in a Warhammer 40k tournament, be sure to check that video out. It will be somewhere on one of our playlists somewhere.
Lovely. And then Ultimate Funk, who's always trouble,
God,
says, after the success of my thought experiment around preferred playstyles, I'm back with another big theoretical question about 40k. 40k factions as biscuits, ?
Nice. I approve of that question. Good question.
Emperor's Children, pink wafer.
Not anywhere near decadent enough.
Gone purely on the pink.
Orcs are hobnobs.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think
Ultramarines are the digestive, because that's like the plain boring one.
They absolutely are.
Not a digestive. That's far too exciting.
No. They're like a nice biscuit or something. They're one of those really boring ones.
Rich tea.
Yeah.
Rich tea, yeah, that's it. It's bland. It's bland.
Yeah, Emperor's Chosen, they're the soggy biscuit.
Oh. This is all going so well.
So we know what custodies are, because that's been done to death.
Yeah.
That was my one time I went
one
viral
are
on
they?
Reddit. They're custard creams, mate.
Oh,
I went viral on Reddit
for that. Yeah, of course they are. Yeah.
Got the t-shirt and everything. Jeez.
What biscuit would League of Votan be?
Garibaldi. They're stodgy with a bit of fruit to them. They're really hard to chew.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like you get those like chocolate selection ones where they're quite tough to bite down, and I feel like that might be quite Votan. You want to watch your teeth chewing down.
And Necrons are just a pack of any cheap biscuit that comes in large quantity, because every time you think you finish the packet, there's still more.
Poundland Saver selection.
Yeah, like Bourbon.
Somehow £2, despite it being from Poundland.
Votan down as ginger nut. I completely agree. That's exactly the kind of thing. It's like that sort of thing where you're biting, and you're like,
crunchy.
am I going to hurt myself? that kind of slightly tough, obnoxious kind of feeling. That's a very good one. Well done. Great. Okay. Unless anyone else has any other biscuits they want to contribute, we might move that one along. Thank you, as ever, Ultimate Funk, for your philosophical leanings. And then the chat start talking amongst themselves.
But then it goes to Just Make Stuff. It's got one.
Yes. How does the team's balance differ from the singles balance? It feels to me like singles is still somewhat skewed to particular factions, whereas the balanced data slates have had a bigger impact on creating a balanced team's landscape. Or am I wrong? Who wants to field this?
Yeah, if you look at the percentages, there's enough factions that can beat each other in this rock paper scissors world that teams is therefore interesting. Like you can compare it to how bad it was a year or two ago, where we went to a teams event where Zach had stupidly decided to make it just win-loss, and it was every team had Harlequins, Custodes, and Tau.
It was the worst thing in the world.
Like, who just make sure those three armies somehow win the 3 games and you win the round. And it was just like, it was pointless. Like and I mean, it's it kind of also goes against the theory of teams where you're like, oh, I mean, I've been bust, but I know I can still play and try and score points. Because it was
that
like,
was a huge
great.
mistake.
I have been sacrificed to get bent over by 9 Void Weavers. Isn't this fun for
and
everyone?
it won't matter at all.
Yeah, exactly. So you compare that time compared to now, where Eldar have bad matchups, CSM have bad matchups, all the armies have bad matchups and good matchups, and it makes it a really interesting process to try and build your team, which is why the next question is going to be fascinating, because Lee and I actually had this discussion on the drive back, and it's quite an interesting one. I think people in the chat should get involved in this next question.
It is also worth saying, just make stuff, that sometimes the two can actually inform each other. If you'll notice after WTC, suddenly a whole bunch of factions actually got a look in that weren't getting a look in before. There's an extent to which teams can inform what happens, because what you'll often see at the big teams events is if there are solutions out there to what's hot, they will have found it, and then suddenly everyone's like, oh shit, if I play Thousand Suns I can kill Eldar, blah blah blah, and it kind of ripples down in that way.
The general method does get there, it just takes them a bit longer, and
It does,
WTC was pretty soon. Was it before or after the changes? It was
it was like the first big, it wasn't long after.
So
and
Towering had been fixed, but that was
Dark Angels, T-Suns, a bunch of armies kind of broke out after that.
Right. Yeah, and Eldar had the first lot of points nerfs.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the thing to remember from teams, teams events is quite often people will be positioning the list to do a task really well, whether that is dealing with an army or it's just going, I'm an immovable blob, or I'm just going to shoot stuff.
Yeah.
So that doesn't always translate into a singles list. It's more, it's going to be pointed at a specific target.
Exactly. So teams is just better built to weather changes in the game. I think it handles that better than singles. When things are really out of whack, singles suffers, but that's the way of it.
I mean, let's be honest, it's just the best way to play the game. It's why all the good players typically get bored of singles, stop playing it, you forget they exist, then you go to a teams event, you get absolutely wrecked. Shout out to Battle of Britain last year where I got chewed out by Tony Chu. Really lovely guy, really lovely experience.
My captain at Battle of Britain this weekend.
I'd never heard of him before. I've fucking heard of him now. Ears are still ringing, mate. Beat me so hard I picked up a new faction that he was playing.
Nice. I love it. That happens. You do that. That really does happen to you. You have like a sort of epiphany as you're getting smashed by an army. You're like, oh wow, I'm going to do this.
I got wrecked in 9th by a Necron player. Picked up Necrons. Got wrecked by Brian and Tony. And I was like, cool, I'm playing Tau. They've got so much skill expression here. I want to play it.
Should I buy Tau then? Should I buy Tau or Chaos Knights?
Buy both, mate.
Probably Chaos Knights. They're a good
I'll
one.
buy yours.
I haven't been bodied in 10th edition yet. I think I need that to decide what I want to play my next army.
Right, Hannibal, next question. Based on your experiences at Saffron Slam, what do you think the optimal faction line up is for 4 and 5-man team events, assuming player skill is equal?
Right. So Lee and I had a discussion about the 5-man. Like, if you could take only 5 armies, who would you say? So I think we'd probably all be in agreement of Eldar and CSM.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And Vota.
But then it's like, who are the other 3?
Mm.
You need a first defender, right? So you need someone who can be generally good into all.
Mm-hmm.
If this equal player skill is a high level, I think Grey Knights are definitely a potential option because they just score well no matter what.
They are very good defender.
So that's a potential option, but
and they have a decent game into both of those, which helps.
Yeah, exactly. Votan obviously up there at the moment.
I think Votan are really durable in teams right now. Very consistent and can either bully or defend. I got to do both. It's an army that's quite flexible in that sense.
Yeah, because you need that kind of thing. Like, take for free, don't take Necrons.
Yeah,
I don't like Tau in it. Sorry, Jack. And that's because Tau give the opponent a secondary game plan, which makes it quite hard to push differentials unless you absolutely smash someone.
It's the same problem with Chaos Knights.
Yeah. Although I like Chaos Knights for being stodgy, so it's interesting, isn't it?
It's and they can bully the primary in a way that so you're denying one half of the secondary game.
I think Orcs have got a good place because they've got like Votan, that flexibility. If they're in cheap,
you probably
vehicles,
don't need both, but one or other of those I think would be great.
And they do have some output, so a couple of the orc lists this weekend didn't have things like Mozrog, which felt like a mistake to me because that is a piece that can bully. So it still can hold its own a bit.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah,
he's on the receiving end of. You know his Beastie Boy, whatever it's called, the thing that he's riding on.
Squigosaur.
The Squigosaur, yeah.
When Great White Squig.
Attacking vehicles on it, I think it's like every 4-up. It's like dev wounds. He gets extra damage against vehicles.
Anti-vehicle and monster.
Yeah, Nick rolled wounds into me. He was like, "Yep," and that's 10 mortal wounds.
Sorry, dev wounds, not mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Worst.
Yeah.
Worse.
Oh, horrific. Yeah, he does eat vehicles.
Literally.
Pac-Man.
Is there anything we've missed? Those are the obvious standouts. I do think Dark Angels are always very solid as well.
Is there going to be an artillery? Because
yeah,
that triple whirlwind or like as Jack says, oops all artillery. Like no one wants to play into that. If you went, I've got that guy's got speed basilisk,
it spooks the fuck out of people. I was very spooked by it.
No one's volunteering to play into that list, right?
No, and it just you want to have something like that in there just for those sneaky hidey armies like Eldar. Especially.
He is maybe a controversial take. I think I was very happy that we didn't have Eldar.
I completely agree. Didn't miss it whatsoever.
In a 4 or 5 man teams event, it's easier to try to counter what you think might be the top armies there. So, not bringing Eldar, I didn't think hurt us because we had 2 or 3 armies there that could sit easily a 10-10 into Eldar or maybe beat them depending on.
But that's a bit because Eldar.
Still an army that's got no real proper losses. Like other armies can get blown out. Like your CK has to avoid certain matchups in case you get blown off the board.
No, you just go first, mate.
Well, there is always that. But Eldar don't have that fear. And none of the people I was never really concerned about kind of getting completely chewed out. So that's why it's kind of even if my playstyle isn't to blow opponents away, but my wind was still kind of 13-7 and that sort of thing. So I do.
No, I agree. I think it's whether it's having. I guess it's all about how it goes into different factions and how many things it bullies versus other things. I think it's still very good. It's evidently still very good. It's in lots and lots of teams, but certainly we felt our composition was okay without it.
Yeah, you definitely want it in 8s.
Oh, well, I think you probably want it in a 5, but I don't think. I think if you have one of either Eldar or CSM out there being a bully, I think that's.
Yeah, maybe that's why I didn't feel like we were missing it because we had that big bully pressure in Lee, and obviously Lee's an incredible technical player. The man's a machine.
He is, except when he forgets to do strike 6 split races. But he is on his day. He is better than anyone else in our team.
I will take the incredible level of skill he brings and give him the once per event mistake.
Exactly.
Where it's
he's allowed to have his moment, and also he was so good the day when he came in the day after, and he was doing his stretch. He's like, I'm not going to fuck up at all. I nailed it.
I think at 5-mans you could get away with putting your Space Marines as vehicle and dread heavy instead of Chaos Knights to sit for a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, that might be where. Well, that's probably where they're going to sit, isn't it? This artillery redemptor heavy stodgy build.
Because it does that role, so you don't have to then have the Chaos Knights, which then frees up things like Demon Allies.
That's true. I did really like the Chaos Knights.
I think one interesting pick would be, and I'm not saying it's in the top 5, but it could be one, is World Eaters. I've been doing a lot of...
very, very good. Yeah,
been doing a lot of research about World Eaters actually over the last few days. And
is that because the army box is coming up?
It is actually, yeah.
I think we're all about to be World Eaters mains.
I've got a pile down there of them.
So many
sitting on.
Yeah. You know what? That is an army which is primed for big wins.
Yeah,
it
has blowout potential. Right?
It can generate blowouts.
I did get wrecked by World Eaters at LGT actually.
Yeah,
did they have a forge fiend?
I was just watching. I was watching a video Jack Barker was doing, and it was just he was just talking about how you deploy and how it can really fuck up your opponent. And then if you got first turn, it's just you can just win that game turn 2. And it just it can create those differentials, and again
things have to avoid it, right, and pair around it.
The people who me as an Eldar player, having just said actually, I don't, even if I lost it, probably only be a 7 at absolute.
I was going to name them as one that absolutely would wreck your face.
Run unless you deploy perfectly and screen perfectly and get it all right. It's an army that can really pounce on the mistakes. And I think that's definitely that would be an interesting show. I wouldn't turn that down. And then you've got the other aspect. You can just bring those swarmy lists. You take something like Lewis's type of Tyranid.
I do think Tyranid's a very good defender potential, especially the newer builds.
As long as they've only got one army that can kind of shred you, they're a first defender option, or maybe second defender kind of thing to take.
And obviously Necrons, as you guys experience, are just not one you take.
No.
Jack and I have been talking about potential Necron lists to play around with. We're going to do some testing.
Oh, that's fun.
A little bit of a spoiler here. Maybe a double Tesseract Vault and a double Monolith. That was where I was starting.
Yeah. I like the Tesseract Vault. Alex likes the Tesseract Vault.
It's good.
I like the idea of the normal destroyers, but the models are so old because their sheet is pretty spicy for lining up and shooting stuff with a Lord attached. So
yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we've done that question justice. Lots of interesting ideas.
We didn't pick a 5, but we did.
Well, that's because I don't think there is a single obvious 4 or 5 right now, and it's partly about adjusting and countering what other people are doing as well, as much as anything else. Elmo Miniatures has a loaded question. With the expansion in 2024 of the massive and great fun UKTC events, how should smaller tournament organisers keep their attendances up and their businesses going?
Find a different niche. You're not going to be like the competitive. I don't mean stop doing events. I mean stop trying to be UKTC. So Lewis is, as much as it pains me to say, Lewis has got a good niche for himself. He's a terrible man, but he's running events that people want to go to that are different to UKTC events. They're a very different experience. So they're worth going to for people who like weird terrain and fun rules. Not me.
Fun people.
And free cups of tea.
Yes. I've forgotten his name. What was
Julian? Wonderful Julian all weekend.
Shout out Julian, who kept us caffeinated.
Got every single person in that building multiple hot drinks for free.
Yeah, absolute legend. Lovely guy.
Yeah. I think those kinds of events, this is something we've talked about a lot in various different forums of late. The UKTC events are going to hit a critical mass in the next year or two if they keep expanding to a point that there will be no space left in the calendar if we attend those all the time and nothing else. So I think it's kind of on us as a player base and a community to be aware of that. And I think to prioritize at times local events or events by people you really like, your Hellstorms, your Saffrons, your Toys of Mass Destruction local to us, events that really do offer something. And more importantly, also support good people and good communities and good groups. And I think this is something that you will, if conversations all continue to come to fruition, you'll see voices all around content hopefully championing a bit more in the next couple of years, because I think it's something we're all concerned about. We don't want Zach's doing great, but we don't want Zach to do so well that everything else suffers as a result. That wouldn't be a good outcome for anyone.
Shout out in good time to mention the Steel City Wargaming events. They're really good, fantastic, run by Mark Pilkington. He's just a great guy, runs a great event. He's got one at the end of November, last weekend there. Hit it up, Steel City Wargaming on Facebook. You'll be able to find it there. Please go, because I want to go to it and there's not enough tickets sold yet to make it a reality. So come on down and you'll have the pleasure of if either having a nice game with me, or if you think that I'm an annoying asshole, beating me. I dare you. Fucking try
see you
it.
round 2, mate.
Yeah, come on down. It'd be good to see you.
Up.
Right.
Yeah.
Connor Nichols. Chris is a Grey Knight main now, and I'm not going to dignify your provocative mean question.
Yeah, I just read this.
Try and ask. If you want to ask questions in the chat, you ask nice questions.
Firstly, Connor, fuck you.
Well, this is now going to have to put offensive language on the YouTube monetization tax. Thanks, Chris.
It's fine. As long as you don't swear in like the first 30 seconds, it's fine.
For fuck's sake.
And secondly, it's probably going to be Grey Knights. So,
Grey Knights, possibly the smattering of World Eaters when we all pick up
When
World
we all
Eaters
pick
in
up
about
World
3 months'
Eaters
time.
army.
I think that's very unfair. You've never played a meta army at a time when they were good before, not even in 9th edition.
Stay away from me and my dog, guys. I was here first.
Oh, dear.
We're going to
he's
ignore that I
cute.
played Nids on release and also Eldar on release.
Yeah. So,
I remember that round 2.
I've got a long wait now for something I play to be meta. Although actually Votan has sorted meta.
Well, when did they get the Drukhari nerfs wrong or the pickups wrong, and Drukhari suddenly absolutely?
I would,
horrendous.
if they give Drukhari anything resembling a decent pickup, I'll give that a run in the new year because I would love that. But we will see. I do, as Jack points out, I can't keep acting like I have a stake in Drukhari and talking about them all the time if I don't actually ever play them. So I will at some point have to put my money where my mouth is and get back out there.
I think it's
last time I played them, that would be Home Turf RTT, where I took second with them because I'm still good at
Okay, and in a real tournament, when
no real tournaments. No. Real tournaments.
He did lose. He beat me first round, so he did actually have some okay opponents as well.
Interesting.
I was probably the worst opponent he had, actually, to be fair.
Okay. Alex beat me with Necrons because I let him charge 20 warriors onto 5 mandrakes in my middle objective.
A bold strategy, mate.
So, in and out with the Drukhari. But no, I will get them out to an event in the near future, I think. Right then, Pickleaxe asks,
next.
At what point did each of you know you were hooked into 40k? Was it an epic moment from an early game, the discovery of a really cool character, or something else? Great question. Really cool question. What do you think, Ed?
I don't remember a time I wasn't playing 40k. Genuinely. Because I was 8 when I started. So.
Oh, God.
Wow. Yeah. How about you, John?
It was 7-year-old me going to wargame shows with my dad that was already a wargamer, and me going, do I buy this Carthaginian elephant, or do I fall in love with this man, Gazgul Magar Thraka? And I spent £10 on this book, and I've never looked back. It's even got my name written inside it. Like, there you go, Jonathan Scrivens, back from when I was actually called by my my legal government name. Yeah, there you go, Jonathan. Oof. There you go. That's why this book.
Awesome. How about you, Chris?
So for me, I mean, I did the classic childhood thing of collecting various armies and painting, and then getting bored, and then moving away from it, and then coming back to it. But my dad was always been into like wargaming and stuff, so I'd go to shows with him and stuff. But as Scrivo says, like, it's more like the historical side of things. So yeah, I guess it would be when I got back into it or actually started playing it properly as a grown up with Lee. That kind of I was doing a bit of Sigmar with some local friends, and then Lee, who I'd known at uni and before that, from like playing Xbox together, got in contact and was like, "Oh, do you play 40k?" I was like, "Well, I have some models," and I went over and we played my Grey Knights and Custodes mix, highly illegal. I'll put my Custodes in the Grey Knight Storm Raven. That wasn't allowed, was it? But we had and that was when we thought deep strike charges were 8 inches rather than 9. The glory days.
That's much better.
But it was fun. It was so much fun. And then obviously I met Ben through there, and kind of my competitive instincts kicked in. I was like, so there are tournaments, Lee. Maybe we could do some tournaments. And then from then on, it's snowballed.
Yeah, I think similar. I really loved the Dawn of War games. If anyone played those, that was very big for me. I never actually played 40k as a kid. I had some salamanders which I painted, and I think a few Tau. I think I found some like Imperial Guardsmen that I'd converted with Tau guns. So I think I was trying to do like Tau auxiliaries or something, but I hadn't finished them. And then went away, came back to it much later. And I think it was actually the Nurgle demons. It was the nice new Nurgle demon bits and bobs that they'd done with the Great Unclean One and the Sloppity Bile Piper, a bunch of really cool units. I started painting some Death Guard, and I got those demons. And I wrote and played a few lists with like Great Unclean One and some Death Guard kicking about, and had some really fun, silly games at local clubs where I had no idea what was going on, but was just massively enjoying it, and it all kind of spiraled from there, really.
This is a dangerous
I
topic.
too am a competitive animal at heart. Yeah. Once I start to understand something, so that takes us to this point. Very good. So nearly there now. This is a great question from Sindri. A big red button sits before you. Each time you press it, GW will fill out an existing 40k army with a new needed unit, but it also pushes back the release of Dark Admech and Emperor's Children by 6 months. How many times do you press the button?
I have a friend who I met the very first time I played at Chatter's Wargaming Club, and he was an Eldar player. And randomly, like a year later, he suddenly became like Emperor's Children diehard out of nowhere, which was a bit weird. But literally, I genuinely mean this, every single time Games Workshop or Warhammer 40k put out a Facebook post about new things coming up, you can find him in the comments going, "When's the Emperor's Children thing coming out?" Or "How have you
Go
still
outside.
not done the Emperor's Children?"
Touch some
program?"
grass.
Or "Oh, here's the rumor engine. That's a weird looking Emperor's Children thing."
Oh, come
For that
on.
reason only, I would hammer the shit out of that.
Yeah, I
person
completely
just
agree.
to spite him.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm not in a rush for either of those armies, so I'd happily just fill out the ranges of a bunch of stuff that already exists in perpetuity. Really,
22 times. Every army gets a new
I
model.
am very excited to see what they do with Emperor's Children. And to be fair, Dark Admech will look cool, I'm sure. But...
Yeah,
Jamie
you can
Hughes
just play
should be
pink CSM for the next 20 years because we've slammed the button on repeat.
Yeah. Does that mean that they'll have all that time and they won't be releasing new army books if we delay those two? Because if that's the case, I'd like them to stretch out the edition a little bit, just to give us that time to kind of have all the books to play with as a whole. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Never happens. Never
Chance
would
to be
happen.
a fine thing indeed.
Yeah, right.
I think you just said stop making money. That's all I heard. So, no.
Our final question, and this is what we in academia call a leading question, is from Harley, who asks, "Who was the winning team's hardest games this weekend?"
I think it was anyone but your first game, you said, Tom, wasn't it?
Yeah, I unfortunately had one incredibly easy game, round one, into Harley, and then four absolute epics.
Into really nice people as well, you said. Your 4 other games were really enjoyable.
Of course, we won't talk about the fact that you scored a 10-10 in the first round, and I think, was it just 17 threes for the rest of the event?
Pretty much, yeah. No, both my Eldar games were actually the hardest games. Shocker. Eldar Votan is a good game and a tough game, and I personally think I played both of them really well, but I think Harley played very well in the first one, and Michael, I think it was so nice, so nice, and was maybe
nicer than Harley. It sounds like.
Well, I think we were having a lot of fun with it in that final round.
But
and
Harley
I think...
wasn't fun. Yeah. Okay.
You got your hair first,
guys. They're in the shit.
Harley, you were the toughest game, but you were also a gent to play. So well done.
I didn't get
next
a chance.
Next time, I'm going to absolutely destroy you because that's you can see the progress, right? I lost you first time, drew with you next time. Now it's your turn to lose.
Obliterate you.
I didn't get a chance to say it earlier, so I do want to shout out Tom from round 5, who scout moved his chimeras forwards to give me 6-inch charges with my carnivores, and then I picked up, a third of his army turn 1 because I went first.
He's a lovely guy, though.
He was.
Ed just turned to me and went, "This is a hard matchup. I'm going full send," and then just everything went. It was so violent.
Gunline guard, and I was playing things that like to be shot by guard. So, but even though turn 1, I just picked up all his chimeras and his scoring units. He was super friendly, super chill. Had a great time the whole way through, and then made my life difficult. Sort of round 2 and 3. Turn 2 and 3.
He's a good player normally. So.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What do you mean normally?
Barring turn 1.
Scout move is tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm too keen with mine as well. I think that's us. I think we're done. We have set some goals. We've recounted our Saffron time. So it's time for us to go away now, but we will be back not far from now with more 40k content. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.